Digger Man here. Okay, time to talk about Nick Clips comments. Oh, that's a tongue twister. So every now and again, I get comments on my videos from people that believe in God and who have a lot of questions that I don't necessarily have the answers to. And I think that people are genuinely trying to figure out, like, well, what would replace God? Maybe they're trying to figure that out. They're trying to figure out how to view the world without God being the thing that made everything. So I'm gonna go over his comments here, and I'm not sure which one was first. I'm gonna say this one was first. Okay, so I have the two videos you responded to, which was a smart kid dumb arguments video and my history of the entire world, I guess, by creationist video. So in the smart kid dumb arguments video, now see, this is the weird thing is with these comments is usually the person isn't really responding to the video itself. They're just saying stuff that that's kind of related, but not really. So he says, or she says, in my eyes, the earth is perfect. Our bodies are perfect. I wonder who made it like this. So, in that, I think of the creator. For if our living space is admirable and our brains are working, everything was made for us. Why shouldn't this be a test? There's nothing to alter in hereafter, and this is the final life, then what's the point of creation? Are we just meant to live here and have nothing to do after? That's depressing. It's like this life doesn't even matter. Person who believes in God. So I'm guessing he's saying, or she's saying, I'm going to assume him for now, is saying, they believe in God. Okay, okay. So again, this is trying to make sense of the world without God. So even if it's true that in their eyes the Earth is perfect, I'm not sure what they mean by that. The planet, like itself, like the way it works, like what does it mean to be perfect? What do you mean by that? Certainly, there's things on the Earth that could be better, but better in the sense of like uh, more beneficial to living creatures, maybe uh, or it could be better in terms of more beneficial to the planet itself, perhaps, depending on what you want to be a perfect world, what that means to you. So if you're going to emphasize the living creatures over the ecosystem of the planet itself or some balance thereof, I mean, what would it mean to be perfect? I don't know. Our bodies certainly are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination because they grow old and die. So already the idea that bodies are perfect is nullified. And of course, you have people with disabilities, both physical and mental. Some people are born just with a brain stem. I wouldn't call that perfect. The process of birth is not perfect. Going to the bathroom, certainly not a perfect body because you wouldn't need to have waste if your body was perfect. It could process all the food that you consume perfectly, and it doesn't. You don't have perfect sight or hearing or smell or touch or taste or anything else. None of those things are perfect because they can fail, they're not always correct, etc. So in what way are our bodies perfect? I think that you would have to stretch the meaning of the word perfect to encompass non perfection as well to be able to make that statement. And then, of course, wondering who made it like this. Well, that begs the question. You're assuming there's a who that made anything in the first place. So that's a problem. And to say that our living space is admirable and our brains are working, everything was made for us. Well, why would you think that? Like, again, it's just an assertion without any reasoning leading to that conclusion. There's no logical line that leads to that. It's just like, well, my living space looks really nice, and my brain seems to be working. Therefore, everything was made for me. Well, that's not the case. Not necessarily. I mean, the house that you find yourself in might not have been made for you at all. It might have been made for other people or other things. So who knows? The purpose of where you find yourself in the land that you live, that's not made for you. It's just there. So it's these assertions that are very self-centered, like, well, everything is about us humans. It's just, well, what about all the other animals and living creatures? Like, how do we know that everything wasn't made for a tree? Like, we wouldn't, If there's nothing to alter in the hereafter, and this is the final life, what's the point of creation? Kind of a very clunky sentence there. There are things to alter in the here and now. We can make a lot of improvements to the way the world is. Small improvements, granted, because we're individuals, or we have limited abilities and limited scope. But still, you can do things that make it slightly better. You can, make your room clean, for example. You can cook for somebody, or you can, help your neighbor. There's so many things that you could do to make life a little bit better for people around you, a little bit better for yourself, a little bit better in general. There's many, many things that you do that could do that. And then what's the point of life if we're just, this is it? Well, it's up to you. It's the only answer I've ever really found to be consistently true, is that you decide what the point of life is moment by moment, and there isn't a ultimate grand point to your life. And if there was, I think it would be kind of weird, wouldn't it? Like, what if you missed it? Like, what if it was to tighten a lug nut, somewhere? Why is that the purpose of my life? Because that's what it is. It's like, well, I didn't know. Nobody told me, and I didn't ever tighten that lug nut. And then if you did do it, well, then why would you continue living after that point? Because your purpose in life has been fulfilled. So I don't think that having an objective point for life would uh, make living more significant. I think actually it would make it less significant. As far as only having one life, yeah, we only have one life. That's it. There isn't, as far as I can determine, anything after this life. You get this, and that's it. What's the point? I don't like. Why is it that way? It's just that's how it is. That's how things are. And any point that we have is one we have to come up with ourselves. Um, it is, and to say it's depressing, well, again, that's for you. It might be depressing, but that doesn't make it false. So appealing to your own emotions doesn't make it not true. It doesn't make it not real. It's like, this is the way it is. Oh, that's really sad. It's like, yeah, it is sad, but it's still the way it is. So, uh, hey, Wild Heart, cooking clean, not a woman. Just kidding. Okay. All right. Um, okay, so I said, in response to this comment, I said, your eyes are wrong. You'd have people. What about people with disabilities, brain problems? Because he's saying people are perfect. Exactly, who made the people like that? Well, you were claiming that it was a creator that created people, right? So wouldn't that creator be ultimately responsible for making people with disabilities? Shouldn't it be a test? Their disabilities are to show other people you are lucky. Wow, that's really terrible, horrible ethical idea there. It really disgusts me. It really does. It's like, oh, look at that poor schmuck. I'm really lucky I'm not him or her. So God made that person broken just so that I could realize how good I am. No, 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 no. And what about them though? So their purpose in life is to make other people feel better about themselves. What a horrible thing would do that. It's just nonsensical, unethical, immoral. Uh, it's just begging so many questions, trying to justify, well, our bodies are perfect. What about people with disabilities? Well, see, they're there to make you feel good. Okay, but they're not perfect, right? So you didn't get the point that they're not perfect. You're not acknowledging that they're not perfect. You're saying they have a purpose. The purpose is to make you realize you're lucky. What a bunch of baloney. Uh, what about people that die like a couple weeks after? After what? Like what do you what is it? I don't even know what he's referring to at this point. Like what about people that die like what, a couple weeks after they're born or whatever? What about them? People die, creatures die, animals die, plants die, everything that's alive eventually dies. Uh, where do they go? They go, they disintegrate into the surrounding area and become part of the earth again. They're recycled essentially. But if you mean like their consciousness, if they had one, it doesn't go anywhere because the thing that makes the consciousness, which is the brain, is no longer functioning. So there isn't a where for it to go. It's gone. That's it. Game over. Their life just ended like that. Yep. You're dead, you're dead. We're just supposed to live in life and face many challenges and not technically live well. You should live well as you can and try to make other people's lives better if you can. I think that that's a good ethical thing to do. Um, Technically, you don't have to. Sure, you could live however you want. You can live young, fast, and die young if you want. That's really up to you. Is it the best way? I don't know. It's your choice to make. But technically, there isn't a quote right quote way to live life. There's ways that will give you a longer life, or a more fulfilling life, or a more beneficial life, or a more pleasurable life, and things like this. But there is no one particular way to live life. That's just how it is. And I said, fuck that nonsense in regards to the idea that somebody would be disabled so that this is a test or something. I was like, no, no. Uh, it's not a test. It's not perfect because the world's not. And I suppose what I meant by that is that the way that things came about to be what they are is not a perfect process. But who do you think created this? It just randomly appeared? Again, you're assuming there's a created this. No, nothing created this. Like, not nothing, but how it came together is a natural process. So, what do you mean by this? Do you mean the world? Do you mean the solar system? Do you mean the sun? Do you mean biological life? All of those answers can be found in science. We have explanations for how the world formed. We have explanations for how uh, animals and plants and so on came about. We have a lot of answers to these sort of questions. Uh, I guess you could say to some extent it's random, if you really wanted to, although the question of if there is actually a random is kind of unanswered question. Um, the universe is what it is because that's how we don't, there is no because, it just is. It's a just so. Or if there is an answer, we don't know what the answer is yet. We're looking for it. And that's okay too. Um, life as we know it's a lie? Question mark. Maybe for you it would seem to be a lie because you believe so much in a creator making everything for us that without that notion, it's very hard to understand how things work. And this is one of those things where religion and beliefs in the supernatural or superstitions can can impede somebody learning real stuff, like real science. Like the answers to how the earth came about, how the universe came about, or how life came about, that's all available through science. Those are questions science can answer and has answered. And there might be some things we don't know the answer to quite yet, but we have some ideas on, and you'll have to be settled with the mystery. But the faith in the God, it kind of prevents the person from looking at that because they already have the answer there. Why go look for answers when you already think you have the answer? Hello, Snuffy. Let's see. What's the point of this life? This time with 4 question marks. So again, this goes back to earlier. He's like, what's the point? Like, without a god, without an afterlife, because again, those two things are usually intertwined. Not always though, but I find that people that believe in a god usually also believe in an afterlife. I have not encountered somebody that believes in an afterlife without a god. But I like the question of, well, choose one. Either there's a god or there's an afterlife. You can't have both. Which would you choose and why? Because this forces the theist to think about stuff and to struggle with that answer because do they care more about the God or do they care more about the afterlife? That's really what that question is asking. But is there a point to the life? Yeah. Yes, whatever you want it to be. No, in another sense. And then broadly speaking, the point of life is to reproduce and continue life. One chance. Yep. That's all you get. That makes no sense. Well, doesn't matter if it makes no sense to you. Personal incredulity. So it doesn't make sense to me. Therefore, it can't be true. That's the logical fallacy of appeal to personal incredulity, and also it could be an appeal to ignorance. I don't know. Therefore, X. Another thing is, if we just appeared, then didn't the universe create us? Um, it's clunky. So I guess I would say kind of to that question. Like the universe didn't create us in the sense that I think that he means create. Because the universe doesn't know anything because the universe doesn't have a mind. So uh, the universe has things that permitted uh, planets and stars to form, and then that some of those planets would then permit certain things to occur that would lead to life. But uh, it didn't know that that's what was going to happen. There's no. Oh, Snuffy's mom believes in afterlife without a god, just on feels basically. Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised that more that people would believe in an afterlife more often than a god because it's very hard to imagine death, like not existing. That's hard to conceive for us. It's like, well, what's that going to be like? Well, it's not going to be like anything. Well, what's that like? What is that like? Well, you can't know what it's like because there is nothing to like. The only thing you can compare it to is if you've ever fainted or gone under for operation. Like 1 minute you're in the OR counting backwards, the next minute you're in the room waking up. And I had that happen to me, so I was just like, "Whoa, that's like what?" Like I knew it was the surgery was done, but it was still weird. It was jarring because I didn't know where I was for a moment, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm hungry. That's all I know." And when as kids we made each other faint, which is very dangerous. Don't do that, but we did it. And for a while I was being pulled up so that I would faint, I thought this isn't gonna work on. And all the other kids that were there, they also, for whatever reason, thought that it wouldn't work on me. The next thing I know, I was waking up from a dream and everything was fuzzy and tingling, and I was like, huh? And I'm like, and they're all laughing, and suddenly I'm like, oh, I know where I am. Like there was this moment of complete disorientation, and so in that moment when I had fainted from however long I until I woke up, there was no me to experience anything. And so there's just a time jump from one moment to the next. And there is no me to examine what it's like to not be me because there is no me. So yeah, it's hard to conceive that, and I suppose it can be uh, frightening, maybe. Um, but at the same time, it's like, well, there's nothing to fear because you won't even be there. So but yeah, the afterlife sort of ideas and arguments usually are, I think, because people are afraid of mortality, and the mortal coil is difficult to deal with. Now, one wonders what happens when, and I think it is a when, science unhooks uh, the DNA code in such a way that there's that, was it the CRISPR thing or something like this, where if they fiddled with the little bit of thing on the DNA, that it would always code itself perfectly so it wouldn't degrade, and if they could figure out how to make the DNA do that, then we would not only live for as long as we wanted, we would live at what age we wanted. Like our body could be reset to whatever age. Like, oh, 18 would be pretty good. 16, I don't know. I think 18, 20 would be pretty good. I have a lot of energy then. So, I want that body back, So, and then as long as, barring any accidents, that you would live essentially forever or as long as you want. So what will happen to religion then when that's true, when that's a real thing? Religion will lose a lot of its teeth because it banks on people's fear of mortality, and if you remove that, then what? But anyways, going back. Um, if another thing is, if we just appeared to the universe, I already read that. Okay, and a statement that you made was something must create something, but who created the universe? No, I never made that statement ever. So no, because I don't make that statement. I don't know that it's the case that causality is always true. Um, it appears to be true for almost everything, but there seems to be a possible exception in quantum physics, and I have no idea beyond the T1 point if causation still is a thing. So I don't know that everything needs a cause or has a cause, at least not in the classical sense that we understand such things. So I wouldn't say it. Uh, did the who created the universe just begs the question that there is a who to make the universe. So how did the universe come about? We have an answer to. But who assumes there's a who. There isn't necessarily a who. You have to show that. Gravity? Like that's his like it's like, oh, okay, it's not God, so is it gravity? Like, is that what that might be the answer? What if that was why the universe came to be? Was gravity? That was the answer. Ultimate answer to how the universe started was gravity. It's like, well, but gravity needs something to work on to force it, he says. Not no, that's not exactly how gravity works, but you know, again, whatever the answer was, if it's not this God idea, I don't think you would be satisfied. You just put God behind the thing. It's like, the answer is 42. Well, God made 42. And he says, please think about it. Well, I've thought about this a long time. I've been doing this for a while, so it's not like I haven't thought about this. So that was all in the Smart Kid Dumb argument video. And then in the history of the world, I guess, by creationist video, he says maybe Quran will change their view. So to that, I just said no with a huge smiley face, like no, no, the Quran is not going to change my view. Um, Also, whoop, sorry, I'd have to read the Quran in English, and it's clunky. I've heard people read it, and I've read some of it, and it's just incoherent from the start to to well, I don't know to the finish, but just from the start, it's completely incoherent. Hello, spooky bedhair. Uh, the the thing with the Quran and reading it in English, and this is something that somebody else mentioned on some channel that I watched, I don't even know where, is that they were saying that ex-Muslims have said that reading the Quran in English deconverted them. Like they didn't realize how bad the Quran was until they read it in English and how little it actually made sense. Because in the original language you sing it, and you can't sing it in English. Once it's in English, it can't be sung anymore. It doesn't sound poetic anymore in English either. So seeing the words in English is different apparently than singing them in the original language. And uh, when you sing, you use kind of a different part of your brain, anyways. So if you ever have a stutter, you should try singing. Or if you are having problems with a word, saying a word, you should try singing the word because it uses a slightly different part of your brain. So if you're singing the Quran, you will get a very different idea of what it is than if you're just examining it critically in a different language, whether it be English or some other language other than the original language. And if you're objective about the holy book, whatever the holy book is, and you do any comparison with any other holy book, you'll notice so many similarities. And then to say, well, this one's the real one. Really? I don't know. So in my past hangout, I did, Yahweh is dumb, where I said, the idea that the real God would reveal itself to one person in a very small area is just ridiculous. It's just silly, and that's every religion is that. Every cult is that. Let's see. And he said, "Oof, did you check my other comments?" Like, yeah. So I said, he can come on my channel live. Uh, he said, about that 17 minutes ago. So, um, what about Discord? I don't have a mic. Well, if you don't have a mic, then being on Discord is not going to help you to communicate with me, anyways. So, I mean, I'm live now. I'm gonna just leave him the link to this hangout and see if he joins in text. Uh, oh, hey, there they are. I'm assuming he is Nick Clips. Hi, Nick Clips. There they are. I will type and you talk. Uh, that why I said I'm here. Hi, Nick. So yeah, I've been reading your comments out loud, so everybody's caught up on it. And as you said, you don't have a microphone. What's up, Germania says. It's gonna be a little bit clunky because I'm gonna have to wait for you to type and then read what you said and then respond to it. But welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I get questions like this not all the time. From time to time, I get these sort of questions of, why are we here? Why is this here? How does this work? Those questions, I would say, can be answered by science. That would be my first answer. And then I would say, well, if you want to shove a god in there somewhere, it's gonna have to be. I don't know where it's gonna have to be, but it's probably gonna have to rely on faith because no one has ever been able to demonstrate any sort of God at all. Like, it just hasn't happened yet. No, you guys can keep talking. Uh, how the universe came from nothing. I don't know what video that would be. I don't have a video like that, I don't think. I don't know what nothing would mean either. Uh, so I suppose it's a possibility. Um, the thing is, if we're considering, where the universe ultimately came from, anything that we say as an answer is going to be a guess because the science on it is you get to a point in mathematics when you look at the Big Bang cosmology and you get to this point, like I think it's the T1 point. It's time one. And before that, we have there isn't really a before that because time starts at that moment. And then so physics and math break down before that moment, and we can't really call it before. Stephen Hawking said imaginary numbers are helpful here, so we just pretend that there's numbers even though there isn't imaginary time. And so you get into very speculative ideas because the truth of the matter is we have no idea what is before that point, or even if there is a before, and if there is, we have no idea what that would be like or how it works or anything else. So it'd be guesses at that point. But as far as the idea of nothing, well, if we're talking about the philosophical definition of nothing, where you have a void of everything, so you don't have anything, period. There is no thing there. And you go, okay, so there's no rules. And that's important because if there's a rule, then that's something and then you wouldn't have nothing. So if you have zero rules, then there is literally nothing to prevent something from coming from nothing. Even though that's against the rules that we have, it's not against the rules that nothing has because nothing doesn't have any rules. So how would that work? Doesn't matter. You have no rhyme or reason to this state of nothingness. There's no rules, no physics, there's no anything to prevent something from occurring, even though that makes no sense and incoherent because logic also wouldn't exist in a realm of nothing because if it did exist, then it wouldn't be a realm of nothing, it would be a realm of something. So literally there's no reason to think that something couldn't come from a philosophical nothing other than to just assert, but it doesn't make sense or something like that. But I don't know that there is or could be a philosophical nothing. We'd have to be shown that a philosophical nothing exists. And how would you do that? Who knows? But as far as usually with Lawrence Cross, he has also a nothing, but he means something different. I like to call it N2 for Lawrence's nothing, and N2 is like the quantum void. It's like there's quantum soup, like it's like possibilities that are just bumping around in this uh, in this just void of it's just a bunch of possibilities bubbling around. And I don't understand the science of it, so I couldn't help with that. But in N2 case, you have the potential for something to happen, and you have infinite potentials for infinite things to happen. So eventually, a universe would be one of those things. Why are we here? Just for one life? Uh, why are we here? There might not be an answer to that question, to be honest with you. The humans are here, or animals, or trees, or anything else for that matter. They've done these tests where here's the analogy. Okay, there's a rock in the middle of an open field. Is that rock just there because it's just there and that's it? Or is that rock there so that a bear can scratch itself on the rock? And when they ask this question to young kids, the young kids tend to say that the rock is there so that the bear can scratch itself. But the older you get, the less likely it is that you're going to say that the rock is there for a reason. You're more likely to say the rock is just there. It doesn't. It has no purpose. It's just there. But with religion, purpose is assumed. So yeah, that rock absolutely has a purpose. Maybe it's not for the bear to scratch its back, but it absolutely has a purpose to being there. And I don't know what that purpose is, but it has a purpose. And that's religion's mindset. And I'm just saying, no, the rock is just there. The life is just there. We're just here. That's we're here. Make the best out of it that you can. Um, just one life? Yeah, we get one life. That's it. Yeah, that's how it is. Now, maybe you could become a scientist and figure out how to extend our life indefinitely. That's a possibility, a very real possibility. Many scientists are trying to figure out how to give us essentially immortality. Obviously, there could be an accident that would still cause you to perish, but trying to figure out ways to keep us going. And that's a branch of research that you could get into and potentially contribute to. So if you don't want to die, that's it. That's your only chance is science. Uh, and if you didn't make it before you die, well, at least you tried. At least you did something. But that's it. We get this one life to live, and so does everything else. There, everything has essentially, one life to live. So we better make it the best that we can. And we're not gonna make it the best that we could make it, but hopefully we'll try. Uh, let's see. Do you deny that God doesn't exist though? What do you mean by that? Like that was kind of a double negative. So, uh, to the thing is, the word I deny I don't like, but uh, I don't know what God is. Like, what is it? What do you mean by God? What made it God? What qualifies something to be called God? How do you know that that's a thing? Can you point to it? Can you give me an example of it? If not, then I can't believe that it exists. It might exist, but if I have no reference point, if I have no empirical evidence, repeatable test, or valid and sound argument, I have to be skeptical that it's a thing at all. And one analogy I love to use is that if my bedroom door opened on it and I see no reason why it should open, if I just said, well, it's a ghost that did that opened the door, there's no basis to make that statement on. I don't have an example of a ghost. So because I don't have an example of a ghost, I have to doubt that a ghost exists. I don't have an example of a god, so I have to doubt that it exists. It might exist, but I don't have any way to uh, see that it exists. I don't have a methodology to verify that it exists. So I can't say outright that it doesn't exist, but the burden is on the one that claims it exists to show that it exists. Can't compare a non-living thing to living. Well, it gets actually pretty complicated there because you have actually uh, it's kind of like if you have black go to white very slowly and you have a gradient there. You At what point did it become white? Like, well, somewhere in the middle. Like the thing is, chemicals, would we call those alive? No. Okay, but when they group enough together and they form a cell, then you do call it alive. So at what point does it become alive? It depends what the definition of life is. So it's difficult. I guess you were saying that in reference to the rock having a purpose or not. Well, but the analogy stands in for anything else because the rock can also be a living creature. Does the tree have a purpose in being where it is in the woods, or is it just there? Uh, let's see. Do we have a purpose? Um, or do we have no purpose? The purpose that you have, and we all have, is whatever you want it to be. And you can change that from moment to moment, every single moment that you're around to do that. So you get to decide My purpose right now, as I'm speaking, is to talk on YouTube. That's my purpose right now. And to try not to have my feet frozen because it's kind of cold. So I have a heater going and I'm putting my foot in front of the heater. So that was my purpose in that moment. And, and then as every moment unfolds, okay, it's getting too hot, move it away. As every moment unfolds, my purpose changes a little bit. But as far as some objective grand purpose that we all have that's the same, no, I don't think we have that. And I think it'd be kind of boring if we did. It's like, well, your purpose is to screw in a lug nut. Okay, and if you miss out on screwing in that lug nut, then you missed out on your purpose. And if you do it, then your purpose is complete. So what's the point of existing then? So the also there's a problem of, if there is there only a purpose in life, or is the purpose is in existence? Like, do you have a purpose to existing? Like, if you want to claim that there's an afterlife and you live forever in that afterlife, what's the purpose of that? Why? Like, and that would just, you'd have to go back to your beliefs to say, well, it's this and this and this, because that's what the book that I think is special says that, or whatever. So we don't, I don't think that humans have an objective purpose other than the life purpose, which is just to procreate, broadly speaking. Of course, not all humans can procreate, and I don't think we should all try because we already have enough people. But objectively, scientifically speaking, life's purpose is to make more life. And then subjectively, within the human experience, we get to decide what our purpose is every moment that we're around to exist in the first place. That would be my answer to that. Okay, so in reference to my question of what God is, you said God's the creator. That doesn't really answer what God is. Like, what is God? What is it? And if I ask Nuffy Wolfwolkiss, what is a dog, he could tell me what a dog is pretty well. Yeah, people die and that's it. That's just how it works. I mean, you're dead, you're dead. It's harsh, but that's what it is. That's what we observe to be true. Um, as far as a point, you get to make the point yourself. You get to make that point every single moment that you're here to make it. That's the point. Is you get to decide. You say, okay, right now my point is to talk in this chat to people or to type at them, you know. And then when I'm done with this, then my point is going to be to clean a room or to make food or go to bed or read some book or whatever. Uh, what if there's an afterlife? Okay, great. Bonus level. I don't see any reason to think there is an afterlife. Live this life as if it's your only life you have, I would say. That would be my suggestion. Um, and really, I think it'd be kind of a danger to think that there was a life that was better than this life. Like, oh, my life just is crap. So if there's another life, why not just end my life and go to that next life? And that's really dangerous because you're taking a huge gamble. You have no idea that there is another life in the first place. So yeah, your life might suck, but well, maybe you could work to improve it. Maybe you could get help to change it. Maybe you just feel like your life is crap and your life isn't actually crap, but you feel that way because your brain is not doing the right chemicals that it should or whatever, you know. So if there's some creator, why not worship them? Why would you? Why would you need to? Why would the creator need or want worship in the first place? Why? And So, and I mean that would be my question for that. And again, if there's a creator, is a if. Show that there's a creator. If you can't show it, you don't know it. And if you can't show it, there's no real reason to believe in it. Well, there's reasons that you could give to believe in it, but there's not a rational reason. Well, I don't want to say that. There's not a logical reason. There's emotional reasons, which is we've seen again, but you just live and then you die. That's not fair. That doesn't make sense. I don't like that. Yeah, well, that's the way it is. You know, when you pull a carrot from the ground and you wash it off and you eat it, you've killed that carrot. Its whole entire purpose was for you to eat it, basically. And you know, you don't probably give one thought to it, let alone a second thought. You know, uh, we step on bugs a lot. Probably, you know, there's millions of microbes living on our bodies as we speak right now. There are millions of things living on your body. And when you take a shower or a bath in hot water, you kill those things. You kill some of them, not all of them, but you kill a bunch of them. So what was their point? What was their purpose? Why think it's centered on humans? For all we know, the creator made everything for lobsters. Who knows? Could be. Let's see. If we don't know, we have time to worship? Question mark. You know, I don't know why you would worship anything at all. Like, what worship means? What is it? How does worship work? But if you if worshiping whatever that is makes you feel good and it doesn't hurt anyone else, then yeah, sure, worship, you know, whatever that is. Yeah, okay, fine. There's nothing, you know, as long as it's not hurting anyone, then fine. But why would you do it logically speaking would be the question I would ask, because I'm interested in the logical thought that leads from one to two to three, etc. And say, okay, what is the building block that got me to this point? If I and can I feel the same way I feel when I worship doing something else? So I feel good when I worship, but I also feel good when I help other people. Well, helping other people is beneficial to other people, so why not just do that instead of the worship? And why focus on if it is making me feel good? Why focus so much on me? What about other people again? Or what about if I'm going to focus on me, what about improving myself then? And instead of spending my time in something like worship that consumes my time and energy, I could spend that time in other ways. Meditation does have scientific value, like meditating, being calm and quiet does relieve stress. So taking some time to do that, not a problem, but it is what it is. You're recognizing it for the value that it actually has rather than attributing the value. Like, I'm worshiping this thing because I think it exists and worshiping makes me feel good or something. But it's like, okay, but other things could make you feel good. So, you know, it's up to you how to spend your time, but let's see. Reading through the comments here. Somebody linked to something. I don't know what that's about. It seems funny, you know, life as we know it is so prepared for us. Well, that assumes that it is prepared for us in any way, shape, or form. How is life prepared for us? So, are you telling me that a baby that's born to a woman that was raped, that's then left in a dumpster because that woman can't provide for that child, that life was prepared for that baby in the dumpster that's going to die very soon to due to exposure, that was made for that life, The entire purpose of that woman's rape was so that she could put that baby in the dumpster so that it could die alone, cold, and unloved. That it has a purpose, and that purpose was that. The thing that made everything said that's the purpose for that particular life. Are you telling me that? Because you'd have to be telling me that. Or the alternative is that happens because people find themselves in terrible, awful situations. And society failed them, they failed themselves, and they failed their duty as a human to the other human. So with the God idea, with the creator idea, you'd have to make sense of why horrible, terrible things happen, not just to humans, but to animals as well. I've seen videos where people, are releasing animals that are found themselves in a trap or whatever, that stuck in something, and it's like if the humans didn't intervene, that animal would have slowly perished, slowly died of starvation or thirst, probably thirst first, or getting eaten by other animals. And a human would go and help the animal to free itself. But the creator just sits back and lets it die? That doesn't make that. Why? What was the purpose of that? Do animals and insects also get an afterlife? What about viruses and bacteria? They're alive. Do they get an afterlife? Do they have a purpose? It just makes more questions when you add this idea of a creator to what we have. A link between brain damage. Oh yeah, I heard about this study. I have to look at this study. I'm gonna do some review of this study at some point, or maybe I'll leave it to people that understand science better than I. Uh, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. Why is it habitable? Someone must have made it like this! Exclamation. No, no one had to make it like this. What do you mean? The planet? The planet isn't habitable. Not all of it. You go live in Antarctica. Good luck with that. It's going to be real hard to do. So, and most of the world is ocean. Humans can't live there. Other animals can. Fish can live there, and marine life of various sorts can live in the ocean, but you can't. So there's a lot. Volcanoes are pretty bad to try to live in for many creatures. Some things can live there, but not very many things. There's a lot of places that you can't live in or near because it's dangerous to do so. So nothing made it habitable other than us humans. We conquered nature and we flattened land to build buildings and have civilization. So we did that. Uh, Nothing did that for us. We had to do that work. And as far as why things are alive or why there's life at all, you could find that answer in science. So, let's see. Because it's not like 3 trillion other planets have life. Really? Do you know that for certainty? Have you examined 3 trillion planets to know that there's no life on 3 trillion planets? Or are you just asserting that? Because I think you're just asserting that. You have no idea how many planets do not have life. And so what? Even if it was the case that 3 trillion planets didn't have life, and what's your point? So now I don't know that life has only appeared on this one planet, given how big the universe is. I kind of doubt it. I think that there's other life on other planets, but we're not going to find it because it's far away from us, really far away from us, because the universe is really big. And, uh, within our lifetime, getting a spaceship to a planet that might have life wouldn't happen unless we invent something that can make objects go really, really fast. And I mean really fast, because even going light speed wouldn't be enough to get to our nearest star. That's the nearest solar system by us is still what, 80 several light years away. So maybe you could do it within a lifetime, but you'd be pretty old by the time you learned of it. But we have to then invent the thing to go find out. So that's within the realm of science to find out if there's life other places. But even if it came to be that this is the only place that had life, that wouldn't mean anything. It would just mean we got lucky. If there was, we would know it by our technology. Not necessarily look at the Femini paradox, which is extremely complicated, but it deals with the idea that why we wouldn't necessarily find life. Um, let's see if I can give you a decent thing on it. I mean, you could start with Wikipedia, I suppose. At least you get, something from that, for the thing. But you already had made a claim that it was 3 trillion other planets, and you can't make that claim because you don't know how many planets. You haven't looked at it. You haven't studied it. But what does it matter in the end? Why would it matter even if we found life somewhere else? Would that invalidate your idea that there's a God? In fact, the fact that we're not finding life other places actually means again that the universe isn't really built for life, is it? It's not a very good place for life to be. We're the highest creation. No, we're not. What does that even mean? You're asserting that we're a creation. We're highest in what way? What, intellect? Well, maybe. Dolphins are pretty close. So are certain other primates, but that I don't know that makes us the highest, because a virus can wipe us out pretty easily. So I mean, highest in what way? I don't know. But again, you're asserting this creation. You haven't demonstrated that creation is a thing yet. Let's see. I can. It's probably prepared for us. No, it's not. It just is. But we still live. Yeah, we're alive. But that has nothing to do with anything else. So, okay. Hey, Paul. Hey, Main Gun. Let's see. Ing 1613. Okay. Incest. Wait, what is this? Incest don't need to go to heaven or hell. If there's a creator, then we must be the highest No, what? Insects. Oh, insects. Yeah, why wouldn't insects need to go to heaven or hell? Don't they're alive? Why wouldn't they get the opportunity to continue to have a life? What would be the purpose of them then? See, your whole argument was, oh, life has to have a purpose. If there's not an afterlife, there isn't a purpose. So what is the point of the insect life if it doesn't have an afterlife? What about bacteria? They're alive. Viruses, well, there's some people that say they're not really alive. They kind of are alive. There's debate about that. But okay, so bacteria. What would be the point of bacteria then? See, it's an all or none argument when you say life has a purpose, because it's either all going in vegetables, trees, plants, all of those things are alive. so they have to have an afterlife as well, or there's no purpose for them either. But here's a different way to think about it. If there's an afterlife, why aren't we there? Why have this life at all? Why not just live in that existence to begin with? Why not be created in that realm in the first place? Why be created in a different realm and then have to die to get to the next realm? What sense does that make? And no, we wouldn't have to be the highest creation because you assume that the creator created us for itself. What if the creator is more interested in lobsters than it is humans? How would you know? How would you make the determination? How would you decide that the creator has made us the thing that's the best thing rather than something else? How would you know? How would you know any of this? Uh, why are we humans? Because we were born as humans. You weren't born. You are you because you were born as you. Like there isn't a why answer to that. It's just the way you were. Just, uh, it to prove we're worthy of heaven. Why wouldn't we be worthy of heaven? See, there's God being a dick again. Oh, I'm gonna make people, but they have to be worthy of hanging out with me. What a jerk! So what's the point of somebody that doesn't go to heaven then? Right? What's the point? What's the purpose of somebody who is created, we'll assume creation, and is gonna die and not go to heaven? Now I don't know if they're going to hell or they're just dying or whatever, but what was the point of them? What was the point of them? Answer me that. 'Cause I don't think you're gonna have an answer for that. Well, they have an afterlife, but the afterlife is hell. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What was the purpose of somebody that doesn't go to heaven? To follow the right path. If you fail, you go to hell. What's the purpose of the person that goes to hell? What's the purpose of what is the purpose of that person's life then? So they failed for whatever reason. They go to hell. What was the purpose of their life? And most people in hell eventually go to heaven. Based on what? But why? But you're not answering any of the questions that you're being asked. People are asking you all sorts of questions. What can you learn on Earth that can't be used in that can be used in a perfect heaven? What could you possibly learn on Earth that you couldn't learn in eternity? Why not just create us in the eternity? Why create us on Earth? Why create a hell? What's the purpose of somebody that goes to hell? What was the purpose of their existence? And how do you know any of this? Now, you mentioned the Quran at me. So, is all of this coming from your thing from the Quran? Like, where's all this coming from? Is this just your personal belief? I don't know. You haven't told us anything. You've made a lot of assertions, though. So, what's your basis? Let's go there. What 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 started you on the path of thinking all these things were true? Like, okay, so you have the Quran or whatever. So I'm guessing that makes you Muslim or Islam or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. All right. So can you show that the Quran is historically, scientifically, and or logically true in any way, shape, or form? Which parts? Can you verify every single part of it or only some parts? You know, why? But then you lead into a different question. Why would God only reveal itself to the Muslim people and not to everybody all at the same time? Why wouldn't God just say hi right now as I'm talking? God could come into this hangout and talk to all of us right now and tell us everything that there is to know about itself. But God's not going to do that because, well, there probably isn't a God. So there's so many questions, Nick, that you're not answering, and I don't think that you have there isn't an answer in theology. You're not going to get the answers from theology. But when you come to a skeptical channel like mine and you ask questions about how are we here or where things came from, I'm going to say science. Go read some science books. Go look those things up. The information is out there. It's not going to include your particular God, but it's going to explain these questions that you seem to have. But as far as convincing people that your God exists, that's a different story. So I don't know what you've got a lot of these, but then how do I make sense of it sort of questions, but you don't have answers to the deeper questions that we're asking you. And I think that is part and parcel of what religion does. It only teaches you a little bit. It doesn't really help you to think about the religion, because you don't want to question. If you start questioning the religion, then you might not be in the religion anymore. And the other problem is, of course, with the Muslim religion, is you might actually get killed if you leave it. So that's not good. Why should dogs go to heaven? Why shouldn't they? You said that life only has a purpose if you have an afterlife, right? So which is it? See, it's like it's so wishy washy. Like life has a purpose if you have an afterlife as a human, but animals, they don't get to go to any afterlife at all. So, but they still have a purpose, like, or do they not have a purpose? Well, then why are they there if they don't have a purpose? It's just. uh, oh, that's funny in a way. Purple. Um, no, you'd be contemplating. You'd be thinking that there's no way to know that there is or isn't a dog. Yeah, there's a movie where all dogs go to heaven. Okay, you need to go. Well, thanks, Nick, for joining me live. Hopefully, you'll get a microphone and be able to talk to me or anyone else for that matter and explain your position better. Um, that would be great. Have another question. Okay, go ahead. I don't know that I'll know the answer, but I'll do my best. We're waiting for that. I'm gonna fill the void with words here. Oh. Meow meow meow. The question. He's got to type it out on an iPad, so that's gonna take a while. Hey guys and gals, don't forget to. Nowhere in the Quran does it say that you will be killed if you leave. But can you point out where it is? Uh, that's it. I don't know, man. I just know that that's a thing that Muslims have. Killed if you leave. What is that? I think it's in what the. It's apostasy in Islam. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Well, I mean, I don't. Here's the Wikipedia article on it. Let's see. Where does this come from? I mean, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. The best I can give you is the wiki on it, which isn't very good. Uh, but I mean, it's a start. But yeah, apostasy is basically seen as a death penalty for many Muslims. Not all, I would guess, but just ask around. If I leave the religion, would you kill me? See what people say. I don't know. It's kind of dangerous, but yeah, you can get a mic for really cheap, and you can find it online for pretty inexpensive. But well, I mean, your atheist cousin might. I don't know where you live, so again, it depends on the area. It might depend on the Muslims themselves. I mean, there's a lot of things, but I I mean, it might be very dangerous for people to know that that guy is an atheist. I don't know. I honestly don't. I mean, if you live in a land where your religious freedom is protected, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you don't, then you might have to worry about it. I don't know. But the majority, an awful lot, I don't want to say the majority because I don't know what the number is, an awful lot of people that are Muslims do think that if you leave, you should be killed. And I think that's bad. I don't know where in the Quran it says that, but it does, or it says it in whatever the other book is that's not the Quran that is referred to. I don't know a lot about the Islam belief. I really don't. I know more about Christianity than anything else, but it's not really. That's really kind of a side note of another problem that the religion has more than anything else. Um, and it's this. The thing is, when you live your life according to what a book says, like a single book, and many things in that book have to be interpreted, you're gonna have different ideas of what the book says, and it's gonna lead to problems. Not saying that there's a better way, multiple books, living your life based on multiple books might give you multiple problems, but maybe living life the best way without holding that any one book has the answers might be better than living life thinking that one book has all the answers. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Who knows? But depending on what sort of claim you're making, uh, then that would change the burden of proof you have. But as far as the questions of where we came from or how we got here, all of that can be answered by science. So, all right. Well, oh, you live in America. He's in Saudi now. I guess he has to probably be careful. I really don't know. I know that Wikipedia isn't a reliable resource. That's all I got right now. That's like the first Google thing. Okay, so I wouldn't know where else to send the person for Islam. Okay. All right, everyone. That's all I got. We covered Nick Clips comments and actually had him in the chat. That was interesting. So this was a thing that I did. Like, comment, subscribe, yada yada yada, all that stuff. Lobsters exist. Um, Thanks for coming and doing this. I'm gonna do Finn as a finale, and that's all I got. And next time will be hopefully my video debate with what's his name, Johnny Drive By. We did a mock debate that's far better than what you got on the S.J. Thompson. Way better than that because we actually, prepared it and knew what we were doing. So it'll be interesting to see what people make of that. I really want people to analyze that one hardcore and point out all the logical fallacies that I will be performing in that debate because I'm taking the opposite side that I normally would. So, unless then we don't have any sort of empirical evidence or repeatable tests or valid and sound arguments for Nick Clips conclusions, so we have to be skeptical of it. No, it's not up yet. It will be up next time. Hopefully, that will be like the next thing I do. Will be to put up that mock debate. So look for it and I'll tweet it and all that. Good night. Good night. I'm gonna stop the thing now. Hit the end button. There it is.